Hey guys, welcome back to the Revive Stronger podcast. I'm your host, as always, Steve Hall, and today I have Martin MacDonald on the show again. After a 2-year hiatus, we have him back on and we have some really interesting questions that we're going to be covering and have covered within this episode, from how much does genetics impact our ability to gain or lose fat, the efficacy of refeeds and diet breaks for the general population and also competitors, and much, much more. You're going to enjoy this episode a lot, guys. And just as a reminder, we have an email list. You might not know about that. You may already be subscribed and be getting really great information from us in your email box. And we're going to be giving out some goodies very soon, so keep your eyes peeled if you are subscribed. But if you're not, definitely check the description. There should be a link there for you to join our email list. We've been putting a lot more effort in there and we appreciate all of you joining. So guys, let's get into the episode. Hi guys, welcome to the Revive Stronger podcast. I'm your host, as always, Steve Hall, and today I have Martin MacDonald back on the show. I always look back when it's been a while since I know I've had someone on. It's been like 2 years, Martin. Can you believe it's been 2 years since you've come on?
Is it really? Wow. I did not realize it'd been that long. Although the last few years, I think everyone's just got this like time warp feeling of just, where has it gone? What have I done for 2 years? But no, it does seem a long time actually. But I see you on Instagram all the time, so
sure.
I think it just feels like it doesn't feel that long. But yeah.
And actually, I never said this to you, but I know we had a conversation about, and some of the listeners, I think I've probably spoken about it on here in terms of like my hair, and you did a podcast on kind of hair loss and shaving your head, and I actually didn't catch it until recently, and I was like, how did I miss this? Because I heard you asking, you would kind of run through a question that was asked. I was like, that sounds oddly familiar, and I was like, oh, you're talking, I'm pretty sure you were referring to me, because then I checked through our messages and I was like, yeah, that was my question. I was like, so how have I just caught that now? I feel really bad. But I have to say thank you for doing the episode, because it was very enlightening. I see it even came up recently on your Instagram. People are asking about it.
Yeah, loads of people, it's funny, isn't it? How I suppose you mention it once and then loads of people are like, hold on, what's this? Can you tell me what a podcast episode is, or what you're talking about? And yeah, it was one of my, I guess, like you say, if we chatted 2 years ago and then it would have been after that I recorded it, it's like, I know off the top of my head, it was episode 17. But I kind of go through a few different things with regards to, I think a lot of, because then when I post on my story about losing hair, I then get lots of messages from females going, I don't get what the big deal is about hair loss. And I'm like, wow, like you really lack, whether it's emotional intelligence or empathy or just insight. It's like, as a male, you're always I always get told off, as you're aware, don't talk about female issues, leave it to women. Right. I'm like, I literally have an academic background in polycystic, it's like, I can talk about this. I'm not trying to talk about your feelings. But we're all kind of aware that, as a woman, there's these different body image issues that maybe are pushed more on females in terms of beauty standards, but just the absolute, I don't get what it is about men losing their hair. Why does anyone care? It's like, because it's just a change in who you are, from being young to feeling like you're growing up, like, to even just the stigma of, and the quote unquote bullying or nastiness. Oh, your hair's receding, just locker room banter. But it's not just that. It's everyone online. It's nasty men and women commenting on celebrities. Like, it's just, and I said in the episode, like, I cried when I shaved my head. And the episode is basically what I would say to my younger self about male pattern baldness. But, the kind of different creams and sprays and medications I took, and then ended up, this was the big thing that came up in my story recently. People saying, I wish I'd listened to that podcast sooner. My husband feels like he's being chemically castrated because of you saw that. Yeah. And like, I got the horrible side effects that some people do. Like, the reason I started doing it is because I had a friend who had really thin, really losing his hair. And then I didn't know him at the time, But the guy I know now has kind of hair similar to yours, just like really thick, really like good, like the kind of guy people comment on his hair. And he's like, yeah, I used to have hair like yours. I was like, you definitely didn't. That's definitely not true. And it just, for him, it just worked wonders. It's the same drugs that if you have a hair transplant, you have to take them to kind of help it. But
okay.
Anyway, that's going off on one, but yeah, if anyone wants to go listen to that one, knock yourself out.
I appreciate the comment on the hair. I'm doing a good job of hiding the receding parts.
Okay, cool.
Are you a fan of Dragon Ball at all? Dragon Ball Z?
I don't watch it, but I obviously see all of the memes.
Okay. Just thinking it's like a Vegeta. I've got like the V here. I'm just hiding it with the fringe.
Okay, cool.
And I also saw you've been, this is a complete side tangent, but I'm just catching up with you a little bit here.
Yeah.
And people enjoy this. So I've seen you've been doing the fake tattoos. I literally got a whole forearm sleeve this year. So I've got the whole, even the hands all done.
That's real, obviously.
Yeah, it's all real. Yeah, so this was hours of needling in my arm. So
geez.
You just haven't committed to that.
No, I don't know if you can see any of them. Oh yeah, there's one. And then I got one here, which it's actually a not safe for work one, so I won't show it. And then I got one on here. But I went to a party, and it was just like, it was a very cool scene. And I'm very vanilla in, like I sort of started wearing these black rings. Everyone thinks these are those fancy tracking rings, Aura rings. Yeah. I literally have people going, I see you've got Aura rings. What do you think? And I'm like, what's that? These are literally £4.99 from Amazon. I just typed in men's large black ring. Also safe search if you do search that. But everyone's like, and then I did a residential for MNU, and some of the students were like, are you doing a study? Like, why are you wearing 3 at once? And I was like, they're just fashion, quote unquote fashionable. Just because I am so vanilla. And anyway, so I was like, I need a tattoo. Oh, I've got a little neck one here. Sarah says I can't have anything on my neck because it makes me look like a thug. So I was like, cool. I'm getting a neck. It's very quaint. I like little quote ones and stuff. Anyway, it was just, but I don't think I'll ever get a permanent one because I love the variety. I love to change it here, there, and everywhere. Like variety, spice of life, I think. Yeah. And also pain and expense of having a real one. I just don't think I'll ever commit. But I just do think they're really cool.
No, they can be. It's the time that you just have to sit there and endure this consistent bee sting. Essentially, that's relatively off-putting. But yeah, it's so funny you said you're vanilla, just because that's me. Like when people see me getting a tattoo, they're like, "You're the last person I thought would get one." It's like I'm like, that's why I almost got it, because I'm just like you with the rings. I was just like, I just want something else about me. So these are all Dragon Ball Z actually. So cool. that anime got me through like contest prep and shit times. So really, it kind of just reminds me of
a bit meaningful. Yeah, cool.
And then I just wanted to say, just so the listeners, because it has been 2 years since you've come on, I imagine, but I don't want to assume everyone knows exactly who you are, and we've just kind of talked about kind of things that don't show your expertise in any way. But Martin, he's a clinical performance nutritionist, CEO of Mac Nutrition, a nutritional consultancy company. And I always recommend, if people are asking me like, who do you recommend in terms of like getting further education about nutrition? It's like, it's always MNU. They're always the one that comes first to mind. And a question, I guess, that people might have for you, Martin, is what sets MNU apart from other courses out there?
Yeah. I've been asked sort of things like this. I get asked on my Instagram story all the time, and, can you compare your course to XYZ that I'm considering? And it's, I say this as well. I feel very privileged to be the CEO of such a qualification, and how the industry, like yourself, it's humbling to when someone like yourself and many other big industry names saying, it's the go-to nutrition qualification, it's kind of becoming a bit of a gold standard in terms of the health and fitness industry. In terms of someone wants to be a nutritionist, you know, we have this MNU certified nutritionist trademark. And, you know, one of the things we've been really working hard on is these bespoke insurance policies. So once you graduate, you're actually able to practice, be insured to practice in, I think it's 30 or more different countries now, and online globally. You know, in the new world that we live in, where people work with so many, you know, as I guess you work with loads of people online, if you could only work with people in your own country, it would kind of suck. So it's been fantastic that we now, let's say you live in Canada or America or Australia or South Africa, you know, England, wherever, you can work with clients globally and be insured to do so. And in this day and age, that's becoming more and more important, kind of not for nice reasons, I guess. But yeah, the thing that makes us different, I really think, is just the fact that we very much set up at, you know, Mac Nutrition Uni. I always cringe a little bit when people say Mac Nutrition University, because in the UK, that's a protected title. So you're not allowed to, we're not allowed to say that. Whereas like Squat University, do you follow them on Instagram?
Yeah.
So I would love to call it like Mac Nutrition University, and the same as them. There's like Powerlifting University, there's like SEO University, all this stuff. And it's annoying we can't, because that in the UK, where we are a company, you can't use. But we very much align ourselves with that level of education. You know, if people say, you know, what level is your course? And we're like, well, it's kind of like level 5, level 6. I did the typical thing. I did my degree. I did my master's. I did my postgraduate in clinical nutrition. And the content that you learn on MNU is of that level. We get rid of the bump, the Krebs cycle, the real hardcore biochemistry that you might learn at university. People sort of say, what's the difference between doing a registered nutritionist degree and a dietetics degree in MNU? And I'm like, well, go look at the modules. Like, look at MNU. You got specific modules on all of the areas of body composition that we just know is the majority of people's clients, you know, fat loss, muscle gain, and everything involved in and around that, in terms of the behavior change stuff that you need to lead to those endpoints, as well as then like the consultation techniques and how to work with clients. And then obviously some of the baseline important fundamental biochemistry of protein, carbs, and fats and that jazz. You have to teach some of it, and a bit of research methods and stuff. And then we obviously have our performance nutrition stuff, because again, you work as a nutritionist and you're going to end up with someone who wants to do a marathon, or wants to do a physique show, or wants to prep for a photo shoot, or, you know, wants to be crazy and do an Ironman triathlon or something disgusting. And so we have those modules. But then you look at what people learn in degrees, and it's like new food technology and food policy in the EU. And like you do 3 years, and the amount of actual nutrition in those degrees, like, why do we have so many people who've done nutrition degrees do MNU? Because they leave their degrees and they don't know how to work with people. They haven't been told how to do a consultation. Like the other thing, in terms of your question, what's different from other, say, even online certifications, is we support people with their businesses. So you get a whole year of the professional mentoring in the mentoring lab, which you obviously came and did a webinar for us, which is really great. Teaching people stuff that to be their own boss, to set up their nutrition consultancy, to set up, do social media well, or do the online world well to get clients. And so I think and the final thing, the first thing that came to my head when you asked the question actually was just the tutor support. Like, we are legitimately there. I was brushing my teeth last night and I thought to myself, we tell people that we're available 365 days a year, and we genuinely are. But I thought to myself, we don't have a Christmas Day rota, and we just do it because like my staff, the tutors, they're absolutely fantastic. And if no one's available, I do it. But I just thought, I really want to make sure we always honor that. Like people are crazy. There will be someone studying on Christmas Day. There will be someone studying on New Year's Day. There will be. Like, we are in 80 different countries now. Someone will be that guy or that girl. So we have to hold true. But I just think at university, in my 3-year undergraduate degree, I probably saw my tutor once personally. And in MNU, it's like, I don't understand this slide. We actually went to Dublin to the Sigma event. And one of the students said, an MNU student who was there, she comes up to me in the break and she goes, I'm really struggling with not being able to pause and rewind. And I was just like, and it's amazing because you go to university and I cannot fathom thinking back that all of us did a 3-year degree and there was about 2 people who took dictaphones to those lectures. They weren't filmed. If you weren't there, you just missed that information.
Yeah,
I can't believe it is crazy. But you were a geek. You were shunned if you had a dictaphone. You sat at the front.
Yeah,
no one liked you. So it's I'm all right because I've got, I'm blessed with a very good memory, but you've got people who are just there like, yeah, gone, nothing. Some lecturers didn't even give you the slides.
Yeah.
We're there going, you can watch every lecture multiple times. Here's all of the slides, here's all of the references. So it's a different world. One of my friends who is a very successful senior lecturer said, you're going to put universities out of business. And I said, that is definitely not my goal, but that's a really big compliment. Yeah.
No, I mean, I can only completely agree with a lot of those points because I think about even when I did little things like my PT qualification, you learn a bunch of stuff that's completely irrelevant and you don't learn a lot of stuff that's practically relevant and you just put out to the world to be a personal trainer now one-on-one. You're like, I don't know how to I've never been told how a consultation should go or things like this. So the fact you don't even you don't just give the knowledge and the practical knowledge, you then give them the next steps of, okay, this is how you actually put this into a career now. I think that's why people, I think, sign up to a course. And so you actually provide that versus just part of that puzzle.
Yeah. It makes me laugh actually when you talk about, personal trainer qualifications. Me and one of my very close friends, we don't train much together anymore, but we would always joke about the way that they would teach you spotting in the personal trainer course, about whenever you're doing French press or skull crushers, whatever. And it was and it was literally so he will do this when he'll lift it over my face and he'll go, your bar, and then he won't let go of it, and I'm like, yeah, I've got it, and he goes, you have to say, I've got that bar.
Oh, I got that. Yeah.
And so he makes me say, I've got that bar, and then I'm laughing and it ruins my set. But it's so, I just don't understand why people create courses that are so far from reality. It's bonkers. Anyway, that's off topic.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
No, for sure. And so people know, you said you're launching in a few weeks' time, right? And this will probably come out this coming Saturday. So
in a few weeks, 13th of July, enrollment's open for this year's. We only do one intake a year now, so the September intake. So yes, if people want to enroll, that's the date, 13. I can't remember how long they're open for, but not long. Places fill up quick. But I guess I guess it's a nice reminder for those of your listeners who know me and listening and are thinking about it. It's a good reminder. If someone's just listen to this and go, oh, I would like to be able to talk about research that way, understands critical thinking in that way. MNU sounds like something I could do. Then just drop us an email and, Mac Nutrition Uni is just type that into the internet and everything will come up. But
No, that's really cool. So on the point of, obviously you talked about your training, I think we referenced it a little bit last time. I always say I like to kind of talk to people who, because I think it's great, like someone like Brad Schoenfeld, he's the one that always comes to mind. Like he's in the gym also training and he's a practitioner. Obviously I don't think you're doing like research at the moment, but you are heavily like looking at it and keeping involved with it, and obviously you have your course and everything, but you lift as well. People might know your triceps, probably fairly notorious. Have you been putting forward effort towards that? I think last time we spoke you were thinking about taking it like up a notch, but I don't know if that's continued. Obviously things happened.
So I think when we last spoke, I have been saying that I really wanted to start pushing things since, I think it was like, say, January 2020, and then obviously the world changed, and gyms closing, this, that, and the other, and I think I may have even said at the time, I felt a bit bad that I built this amazing office gym and then just didn't have the motivation to train. But then,
you're killing me.
Yada, yada, yeah, I know. And so, but since that then's changed, it's just, I have gone through some really good short training blocks, and have thought it's bad. I had to join a public gym to motivate myself to train, because I am a people person in general. I am very extroverted. Training on my own, I just could not do it. So going to a public gym just gave me a bit of oomph. It just was part of a bit of a routine. I am at work and at the office so much. And so, I have done some good training blocks, and I even started training legs a little bit, which as someone who basically went about 5 years ago, there is no point in me training legs because I'm never going to compete again. But then, my old bodybuilding ways came back in. I was like, I'm so unbalanced. This is disgusting. So, I have put a bit of legs back in, but just at the minute, it's very, very maintenance, just because like my personal life has just been here, there, and everywhere, have had no routine. But fortunately, recently, I've sort of a bit more understanding of my consistent routine, childcare, and all this, that, and the other. And so we'll get there. Unfortunately, kids' summer holidays coming up. I might have to write off the summer a little bit, but then I'll get back into it. And
sounds like you need a coach. No, I'm joking.
I probably do, but I'm terrible. I just don't listen to people. So I don't want someone else to be like, you're an idiot. You're a terrible client, because I would be.
I guess in some ways this is a nice example, at least from the outside looking in. It's nice not how little, but you've maintained a really decent physique, considering how like almost sporadic it's somewhat been. I obviously don't know the details of how much you've been doing, but it doesn't sound like it's been like, I don't know, bodybuilders, what they're like. They're gaining, like me, gaining barely anything, training 6 days a week, like every day. So
I don't know if it was one of our podcasts where we discussed this, but I did discuss it. But there's one study, and it annoys me now because it's just not even in the peripheries of my mind, but essentially, I think it was a 12-week training study. Do you remember if we discussed this? And essentially, one group trained for the entire 12 weeks, and one group just didn't train and then trained for the 6 weeks. So they just trained 50% of the time. And, if you're talking about natural muscle gain and the speed with which that occurs in trained individuals, and the ability of the measures that we use to assess muscle gain, muscle size, etc., whether that's looking at muscle thickness with ultrasound, or if we're using DEXA scan, but then we've just got all issues with the kind of hydration of fat-free mass and fat mass altering the results. Like, it's a big deal. But you talk about this, a 12-week training study, which again is you don't get year, 2 year, 3 year training studies. They don't happen. Talking of someone like Brad Schoenfeld, who's doing these studies, like oh, Brad, why can't you do a 5-year study on, it's like, so that we can see. And so, you look at and in this study where basically one group just simply trained for half the time, we understand that things like, muscle memory. So you just don't train for a few weeks and then you go back in and just make these massive gains for say the 6 weeks. And pretty much you're plus or minus this sort of standard error of measurement in a study as the group that trained solidly 6 days a week for 12 weeks. And unfortunately for someone like me, it just puts me off training hard. Because I'm like, what's the point?
Yeah.
And other factors come into play, and it's like again, for me, what's my driver? I'm not a bodybuilder. I'm not competitive. I'll never be competitive to a level where I'm like, I would like to do something where I think I could win. Now I'm just like, cool. If I can look a certain way, I'm not there trying to be better than anyone. I'm not, not that I know in your world of natural bodybuilding, the biggest thing is you're there to beat yourself. But when you step on stage, no one goes there to go, I couldn't care less where I place. I think I even saw something from you, someone super humble, super involved in the process, super like you love the process. It seems to me, but you still, correct me if I'm wrong, please, sort of said, I'm a bit disappointed, with my placing. Cool. And it's like, you're someone who's not there going, I'm the man, I'm going to be the best, I'm better than him, I'm da-da-da. But it's just like, you don't go to you can just do a photo shoot if you're going to do that. It's like, I'd like to go and do my best showing and actually to place well. Now, again, in a place like bodybuilding, I'm like, it's who turns up on the day. You just get some freak. I can still remember the NPA Yorkshire. I rocked up in shape and a guy called Jay Hollingsworth rocked up, and I think it might have been the under 21 category, and he looked like he was about 50 years old. I don't know if you're aware of him.
I might recognize a picture. I don't recognize the name. I know the MPA. They're still just about going. Yeah,
and the MPA, like, great organization in terms of everyone's like, no natural bodybuilders are natural, and it was just like they are, like, you are. That all the people people just don't want to believe some of the natural physiques that are out there, and you go, this guy, look how he looks. You look at someone like Kai Green, everyone's like, he's not natural, when he probably was.
Right.
To then what he looks like when he definitely isn't natural. And it's like, boom, put another 100+ pounds of muscle on him. It's like, you think he was using then, do you? And some people will go, oh no, he did some extra special drug cycle, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, plus or minus, whatever. But, anyway, there was lots of speculation around this guy. And I'll be honest, I think he could well have been natural. But I just was like, this is disgusting. I'm the best I've ever been. And I look like a child. Like, I'm 21. I look like a 12-year-old boy next to this guy. It was just soul destroying. So anyway, how did we get onto that? How do we get onto natural bodybuilding? Training, it's depressing. I'll never compete again. For me now, it's like, go and do a load of volume on my arms, wear short sleeves, have triceps. No one cares if I've got a balanced physique. No one cares if I've got a decent lat spread. Nobody cares. And what do? I just do it for me, like, cool. Without the stress of having to be better year on year.
I really like that because I think it's just refreshing, because I have clients probably who are actually similar to yourself in some ways, and in the fact that, like, they're not looking to compete, they're just doing it for themselves. And it's like, but they set themselves up to the standards of, like, someone like myself. I'm like, no, like, there's huge diminishing returns to the level I'm going to. For you can just, like, put in this more moderate approach. You'll get way more bang for your buck. Kind of almost the Pareto rule applies in this case, where, like, there's only few things, you get almost everything.
And like, I'm not not a training specialist in any way, shape or form. I always get asked training questions on Instagram and I end up just making jokes about them. They're like, oh, I've got this patella issue and blah, 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 squats. You know, what do you think I should do for my training? And I'll just go, my expert recommendation is more bicep curls. Like that's why I like standard. And then in the subtext, I'm just like, please, there's such better people to ask than me. My name is literally Martin Nutrition on Instagram, not Martin Training. But they just go, well, you look like you train. I can probably ask you. And I'm like, no, ask someone who's, but I think in the training literature, it's like, you can just train essentially once a week and you can pretty much maintain the level that you're at. You know, it's like give or take. If you had enough volume in that session, did some sort of full body thing, and you're not at the peak of wherever you are, train once a week, you can get some maintenance trace, you know. So I think people need to remember that. It's like you take a week or two off the gym, it's like you don't lose all of your gains. Like it's just not the thing. So that's what I'm telling myself at the minute, because I haven't trained for about 2 weeks.
But it's I think it's refreshing for people to hear, and like priorities. You have your priorities in check, whereas there are some people who have their priorities. Sometimes if training is like your number one priority above everything else in your life, something's a bit off. Yes. So I think it's refreshing for people to, get a reminder of that fact.
Yeah, good.
Should we dig into the first question I've got here?
Go for it.
Let's go for it. So this one, I don't think actually a lot of these questions, definitely the first time I've asked you, and they may be the first time they've actually come up on the podcast. I think this is the first time it's come on the podcast. So it was essentially, how much do genetics impact our ability to lose fat or gain it? Like, is there because I think there's some people that are just like, even actually as a competitor, I think there are some people out there like, oh, everyone can get like as shredded glutes as, you might not know him, Brett Freeman. He's like insane, like bodybuilder, just gets like a walnut. But anyway, there'll be those. You may have seen him, and equally, like people will say, oh, I don't know, anyone who's obese, it's all in their control, and there's no like genetic component. So I'd love to hear what is actually the truth.
Yeah, it does. I get these messages sometimes saying, oh, there's this thing on TV saying that, people are more genetically prone to being obese. Like, can you call it out? And they put me in a really awkward situation, because I'm like, you're wrong. Like, I'm going to have to call you out, and you're here in my DMs going like, oh, can you believe this rubbish? And I'm like, ew, you need to calm down. And unfortunately, they're sometimes quite new to the game. They've found out that, they've maybe seen me calling out the people who go, yeah, carbs aren't the reason that we're all fat. And, insulin isn't the thing we all need to pay attention to, and yada, yada, yada. But then, and that, they have an understanding of energy balance from following me. So they're like, yeah, they just need to eat less. It's so simple. Just eat less and move more, man. And that's it. And it's this very, very simplistic new, essentially Dunning-Kruger. They're not doing anyone any harm, but they are overzealous in their newfound empowered state of, I understand how to change my body composition to an extent. But genetics play a huge role in like just about everything, to the point where you can really go too far with it and start discussing, beyond the physiological of, my genetics do this to my physiology, but maybe my genetics impact my psychology to the point where actually how much of a motivated individual I am comes back somehow to my genetics. It isn't just, it's the discussion of nature versus nurture. So nature being, in a dumbed down way, genetics, and nurture being how you were brought up, to what life experiences you've had, to the environment that you live in, etc., etc. And so genetics do have this big role. The thing that's important, I think, as a baseline for this question is, what impacts. Well, we're going back to principles, and sorry, for your listeners who are like advanced and they know this stuff so well, but let's just go back to the principle of, say, fat loss. And we're talking about an energy deficit. The body needs to be in this situation where the flux of energy or the flux of fat is greater out of the system than into the system. So we can, people can do this whole mental masturbation thing of, well, actually, you could be burning carbs and be in a deficit and not actually use any fat. And it's like, just shut up. Like, nobody cares, Kevin. Like, go back to Reddit and chat about that stuff. We're talking about the real world here. If someone is longitudinally in a situation of a deficit, people will lose some fat. Your body will start doing that. I had a comment on my Facebook page the other day. Well, actually, in the situation of someone stuck in the desert with no access to any macronutrients, wouldn't the body actually favor taking from muscle tissue first? And I was like, and I just replied back, why would the body do that? Like, based on what? You're just making up this random scenario and going, well, I think the body would do this. I'm like, go look at some research. Go look at, the starvation response. What happens to protein degradation? Oh, it goes down. Like, let's not make this stupid, crazy scenario that's hopefully never going to happen to anyone where they're stuck on a desert island starving to death. Let's take it back to someone just in a normal calorie deficit. And so in this situation, we have this principle of, okay, fat loss, we need a negative fat balance in the body. And people go, oh yeah, but it's about genetics, bro. Like, don't you need to change things for the genetics? It's like, no, I'm talking about a principle. They need to be in a deficit. Yeah, but what if someone's hypothyroid? Yeah, they still need to be in a deficit. And well, I've got, I work with a client, she had PCOS. Then what? She still needs to be in a deficit. This is it. What I sometimes try and do is take it to, okay, boiling water. What's the principle? People go, okay, but her calories were this and she didn't lose fat. Okay, well, then she wasn't in a deficit. So then you go, okay, boiling water. What's the principle? If I have some water in a pan and I want to make it boil, what do? I apply heat. Does anyone ever go, how many, and I'm not a physicist or anything, but, how much energy do I need to apply to this water to make it boil? No, we just go, I know the principle is I add energy, I add heat, and it boils. Cool. Now, you go and boil that water at altitude. The altitude changes the point at which water boils. So it's to do with atmospheric pressure, and it's the higher up you are, the lower the temperature at which water boils. So you don't go, oh, do you need to change the macronutrients? Do you need to change the type of heat you're applying? Do you need a blue flame or a red flame? Do you need it? Like, no, I'm applying heat to the system and it happens at a different point. So when we start taking it back to like, this is just a principle. No one's trying to lie to you. No one's trying to trick you. We just know that we need to be in this system of where more energy, and hopefully from fat, and it will be from fat at some point, is going out of the system. And then you go, okay, if we can all just get onto that same page, where do genetics come into it? And then we can go back to the very basic seesaw diagram or whatever that people want to talk about. Okay, we've got energy in and then we've got energy out, and understanding that the human bodies are this dynamic system. And genetics impacts so much. So take appetite. Appetite's a brilliant starting point. And I know lots of your listeners will be these.
Hi guys, Steve here. Just wanted to take a moment of your time to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we pride ourselves on providing personalized service that will take your physique and knowledge to the next level. If you're interested, check the description and sign up.
just robotic,
Yeah.
superhumans who just, appetite, what's that? Like, pleasure, what's that? Food is fuel. But like, unfortunately, like, I come from more the world of real human beings, not robots, like you guys. But so appetite is like, if we're going to talk about genetics, appetite is one of those areas where we have probably the most robust evidence around genetics, in that, or at least a gene that we can name. So we have this gene called the FTO gene, and again, people also need to realize we are so far from genetic testing being useful, and unfortunately, there are so many people who are just sellouts, even people who I once respected. And I'm so sure, I mean, I've never been wrong when I spot a sellout years before it happens. It's going to happen. I'm not going to name his name, but it's someone who about 8 years ago said to me, we're 15 or so years away from ever being able to even start doing this. And already he's there making claims. I'm like, oh my goodness. So, but we have this FTO gene, and you can't just go, right, FTO gene, you've got this, therefore equals. We're talking, these studies are done on hundreds of thousands of people. And therefore on a population basis, we can go, oh, we've got these kind of really strong correlations. The problem is, as well, is if you go and get you're struggling to lose fat, this question, are my genes stopping me losing fat? And you go, I really struggle to diet. I really struggle to lose fat. I'm always hungry, and I've got a higher body weight, body fat than my friends. Cool. I go and get my genes tested. I've got the FTO gene. What does that tell me? It tells you you've probably got a higher body fat than your friends. It tells you you've probably got a higher appetite than your friends. Yeah, cool. I knew that. Obviously, I knew that already. That's why I'm here. What shall I do about it? Well, if you want to lose fat, you need to be in an energy deficit. Well, why have I paid for this test? I already knew that. And this is the big issue. Now, what makes this situation even more complex / interesting / worse is, like, there's this term constitutional thinness. I think that's the word that they use in research, constitutional thinness. Basically, you would call it a hard gainer, right? It's like, it doesn't matter what you eat, you can't gain weight. And in the bodybuilding industry, we know these people. We call ourselves it if we were like that and whatever. And there's different theories. So there's the thrifty gene and the spendthrifty genotype. And so essentially it's like, okay, people who maybe try and conserve energy more, and people who are maybe more wasteful with their energy. And so there's so many compartments of why these things might happen. My spoiler for anything that we end up discussing is, we just don't know what to do about it yet. There is actually one thing that we might touch on, because I know you want to talk about it, that might be to do with this. But if you put it in perspective, like, there's a researcher called Levine. He's like the man when it comes to NEAT studies. You're nodding. You've obviously heard him. Like, everyone quotes Levine papers. Yeah. And what's actually interesting is, because he gets quoted so often, there are studies that question, what I think maybe in the fitness industry, we're very much like, yeah, NEAT is kind of the be all and end all. It's one of these major factors that's impacting stuff. Whereas there are some decent, robust studies that are going, NEAT isn't the reason. And I think probably most people would hopefully go, it's not the only reason. But actually some studies going, no, the differences between individuals are really not explaining all of the differences. But, by and large, I'm happy to go, it's part of the equation. And, you get the Levine studies, it's like, I'm trying to think if it was an overconsumption. Yeah, I think it was. So when you overfeed and you get this luxus consumption, this sort of diet-induced thermogenesis, this loss of energy, like crazy differences of, so you get the average results in the studies, which are just boring. You want to know what's the difference between these people, and you get some people 600 or more calories wasted from overfeeding. I think often they use like 1,000 calories per day excess. Sometimes it's done as a percentage, but then weirdly, these other subjects where it's like minus numbers.
Yeah.
And the Bouchard, is it Claude Bouchard? I think it's, anyway, Bouchard, he's like the man when it comes to twin studies. So obviously twin studies, when you talk about genetics, are phenomenal. So there's a quite a seminal paper where he took like I don't know, say 6 or 12 sets of identical twins. And and identical twins aren't 100% genetically identical, but they are obviously as close that you will ever get. And they overfed them for like 100 days on, like I said, 1,000 calories. And I think it was like 1,000 calories a day. I probably should have read all this stuff before this podcast, sorry, but it's like for 6 out of 7 days a week. And then they don't do, I'm always, whenever I think about these studies, I'm like, I wonder what those people did on that 7th day. And I wonder why they chose that and whatever. But either way, you get what's called the intra and the inter individual variability. So, and the intra kind of being between these two twins. So if we're the same, if you just clone me and we do the same thing, what's the difference between me and me? And then say you've got a twin, the inter difference is then between me and my twin, and then you and your twin. And in this study, like the excess calories that they fed should have led to something like, and this is off the top of my head, but it will be roughly right, about 9 kilograms, let's say, that they should have gained. And the difference between the same pairs of twins was so super close. So it's this big leap towards genetics plays a big factor. But like one of these pairs of twins, I think gained like 2 or 4 kilograms instead of 9. So it's like weird. Why? But one of the pairs gained like 12 kilograms. So somehow they've, made energy from nowhere, which obviously they can't, because we know about these laws of thermodynamics, that, energy can't be created nor destroyed, blah, blah, blah. But how? Well, how is probably, and this is me completely going off the beaten track of evidence-based, whatever. I'm just completely hypothesizing. But when you eat loads and you overeat and you just feel tired and you just sit on the couch and you fall asleep. Imagine bulking on an extra 1,000 calories every day and not being a bodybuilder and not having an active job and blah, blah, blah. You're just told to just absolutely plow through all these calories every single day. And you're like, I just feel tired. And so maybe they moved less is one possible thing. And, as I'm sort of very slowly trying to get towards, there are other things other than movement that we need to discuss. So, I was sort of talking about appetite there. So just one thing to say in this is some people, again, if we talk about these constitutional thinness individuals or, appetite can switch on or off to a varying degree between individuals. So this is something to be just learning more and more. It's like some people can eat and keep eating, their body weight keeps going off and their body doesn't defend. So the metabolic adaptation, as people, if they're comfortable with those terms, we often think of when you diet, you get this metabolic adaptation and things slow down, you know, quote unquote, metabolism slows down. But that happens on the way up as well, but to very varying degree. And it's probably fair to say in all individuals, the body doesn't defend against weight gain as well as it does weight loss, but there still is a degree of huge variance between individuals. So there's this crazy, I just don't know the authors, but it's like the Philadelphia prison study. I'm not sure if you're aware. They basically said to these inmates, you need to gain 10% of your body weight. Are you aware of this? And
I may have seen it presented. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
They basically said, and gain body weight and free access to highly palatable buffet foods. Like, just imagine this. You know, when you talk about subjects and the motivation of your subjects and subject adherence and blah, 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 like you know, everyone kind of gets all giddy over metabolic ward studies because it's like, oh my goodness, look at the control. It's like, these people are in prison, right? We're giving them all their food. This is super cool. And then it's like, essentially, take part in this study and it goes towards, say, you know, I don't know the exact crimes of these people, but essentially I imagine there was kind of low level crimes. You can get out early for good behavior. Please take part in this study. So you've got a motivated group of individuals, eat loads of junk food, gain fat or weight, and we'll let you out early. And they basically showed that some of these individuals simply were not able to gain weight because they were essentially, for all these different reasons, you know, this luxus consumption that I've mentioned, they're fidgeting more, they're increased body heat, their NEAT goes up, they're moving more. And so, yeah, some people just really do not gain weight. So they find it very difficult. And even some of them, they're just gaining muscle. They're like just overfeeding. They just gain muscle. And like, it's like, damn you, I hate you. Like, you just want to overeat and just my biceps got a bit bigger. It's like, damn it. But an area that I'm quite interested in, that I've long spoken about in terms of like, this sort of hypothesis and just, I guess, whatever it was, I competed in natural bodybuilding, I think over about 5 years. And bowel movements is something that is just so variable for individuals. Like if anyone, it sounds a bit gross, doesn't it? But like, but I mean, it's not as tracking your bowel movements. Like, I'm just saying like, oh, I haven't gone today. Oh, I haven't gone for 4 days, you know, at the end of contest prep and whatever. But I mean, it's like, oh, that's a bit graphic to be discussing that. I'm like, well, how about let's discuss the studies where they look at the energy content of fecal matter. It's like, you know, do you want to know how they do that? Have you heard of a bomb calorimeter? You know how they find out the number of calories in your almonds? Well, now they're doing that with your feces. And it's like, and this is just a super interesting area for me in terms of these thrifty and spendthrifty kind of, you know, it's still a hypothesis, but we do know that overfeeding and underfeeding impacts our gut bacteria and the energy harvest from food. So you've got all these zealots out there going, oh, don't calorie count, don't track calories, calories are irrelevant. Just anyone who says that is categorically an idiot or a liar. Like, they're one of those two without fail, because no fair human being, like anyone who says that, is either trying to make money off you or is just a dummy. Like, there's no two ways about it. Like, there's all these researchers coming out saying it, there's the whoever, and it's because they've got shares in biotech companies who are trying to sell you individualized nutrition, personal interventions based on gut microbiome, send us your feces, do this continuous glucose monitoring, get your DNA tested. None of that stuff works yet. I will be the first person to jump on those bandwagons. Like I was, doing the research on DNA testing back in 2006. Like my published research in experimental physiology gets put on these stupid DNA testing kits, like, oh, angiotensin converting enzyme polymorphism means that blood. It's like, no, it doesn't. That's my research. Get off. I'll be the first one to jump on those bandwagons of food intolerance testing, DNA testing, but we're just not there. But we do know that this, first of all, we know that, for instance, almonds, they're like the poster food, right? It's like, oh, almonds, 32% less calories absorbed than what is on the labeling of the packet. What's the word? Conveniently funded by the Almond Association, that paper, but I've no reason to believe that it's just funny, isn't it? It's like, and we are understanding this more and more, that these whole foods, these, there was a paper I've spoken about a lot of times where they just swapped out all grains, whole grains, for processed grains. It was just 100%, one diet, 100% processed, one diet, 100% whole grains. And when we talk about calories in, people kind of forget, just because you put something in your mouth doesn't make it calories in. Like it's just such a simplistic, and whenever I do my tour, I'm just like, make jokes about, just because you put it in your mouth doesn't make it calories in. And even if you swallow it, it's still not calories in. Like, we're talking about, ingestion, and then digestion, assimilation, and then absorption, but then also storage. So one of the things about this whole constitutional thinness is people tend to just absorb fat quite easily and store fat quite easily, but there's a big individual variation in the storage or use of carbohydrates and proteins. So again, if I've really understudied areas, just like urinary excretion of, for instance, we know the kind of urea cycle and these waste products. And as I mentioned, fecal energy content changes with under and overfeeding. So it's annoying. And I've given you a very, very long answer, sorry, to your initial question, but it's genetics play a massive factor, but you're dealt a hand of cards, and currently there's no way to change your cards or cheat the dealer. I'm trying to keep it on a poker analogy, but I'm going to stop. But it's the same thing. You still need to find ways. It might be a bit harder for you. You might be rowing upstream versus someone else, but the same things apply. You can't tell your body, no, please, when I overfeed you, please just make me move more, in an unconscious fashion, just make me fidget a bit more. You can't do that. You can't go, when I overeat, please don't absorb all those calories. Like, please make my fecal matter higher in energy content. Like, you don't have this control. So it's like, we're all still working off, unfortunately, some fairly boring constructs of the energy equation. But the one thing that I do on my podcast quite a lot, talking to general public, is, and just the world, I want the world to be a better place, a more kind place. This whole idea that it's down to personal responsibility and you're lazy if and what you look like deems your knowledge. Like, I'm sure even in your world, like, because you're not taking loads of steroids, people are like, oh, well, what do you know? So-and-so's massive compared to you. And it's like, because he's on loads of drugs. Or even if he's not on loads of drugs, he's got better genetics than me. And it's irrelevant. It doesn't, what someone looks like, there's literally no semblance of their knowledge on a topic. And whenever I say this online, I still get people arguing, going, well, no, actually, I do know what you're trying to say here. But actually, if someone does have knowledge, you would think that they probably will apply some of that knowledge and it will at least show in their physique. I'm not saying it's the be all and end all, but it will. And I'm like, my professors at university were literally some of the most knowledgeable human beings on the planet, and they couldn't care less about benching and bicep curls. It's irrelevant, mate. But they can't get out of their heads. They're like, no, it will affect it a bit. It's like, it's not. Because what if I want to be a strong man, and therefore you look at me and go, you got high body fat. What do you know about fat loss? It's like, I know loads about fat loss, but it's not my goal to be lean. It just doesn't make sense. So I sort of try and say to people, it's not, the way someone looks, they could be trying just as hard as you. They could be doing just as much exercise as you. They could have my diet is not like super amazing, but I look like probably I try quite hard, but I don't. And, and I've always been very like, I don't want you to buy anything or believe me based on anything about how I look. It's not a selling point, and you will be so misled if you buy stuff or listen to stuff or take advice from people based on how they look. It's just not how things work. It's the whole personal responsibility pushing like, oh, fat people should blah blah blah. Like, it's just idiotic from an academic point of view, and it's just purely unkind, and just it's not. And I'm not saying, oh, maybe they need some tough love. Like, we could go into the research on shame and how that doesn't actually affect change in people. But all I'm saying is genetics play a huge role. And you get matey boy who down the pub drinking pints, eating rubbish food, and his body just basically make those calories come out in his feces, and he fidgets a bit more, but he's got a terrible diet. Then you've got someone else who goes to the gym all the time, eats really well, but their body wants them to store more body fat, possibly because they're female, because males and females are very different, but also possibly because of a myriad of different genetic factors. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking.
I have so many thoughts. I might lose some of them, but one of them to keep the trail on feces, because people love talking about that. So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge, and I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.